Hey everyone, I just want to give you a brief walkthrough to help orient you to your first coding assignment. First thing I would do is create a new Java project. You can name it whatever you'd like, but include your first initial and last name. You may want to use the class name and Mod1. Make sure you're using Java 17 or higher. That could be important later in the class. I usually recommend selecting project folder as root for sources and class files, and make sure this module info.java is unselected. And then you can just click finish for now. You don't have to go to any of the next screens. And then right click on your project, or you can go to the import under file, but find import and select the jar file that you downloaded. It's going to be an archive file, and you're going to import it directly into the project you just made. I already selected the correct project root folder. Alright, so if you open your project now, you should see 3 packages. These are your 3 coding challenges or exercises. Let's take a look at the first one I recommend doing, which is this Hamming distance problem in biology. So as the instructions tell you, you're just going to calculate the total number of character differences between 2 DNA strands. For purposes of this assignment, the DNA is just represented as a string like this. So these 2 DNA strands have a difference of 2 because the G here and the A there are different in the 0 position. The next G is the same, and then the following character is different. It's an A here, it's a T there. The C is the same in both, so the total number of character differences is 2. But make sure you read through the instructions. You need to complete all the sections marked to do in the code, and the instructions are really helpful. So here you can see you're going to need to create 2 instance variables and initialize them in the class constructor, and then implement this method called getHammingDistance. Right now it just returns -1, so that's not going to work. If 2 DNA strands are equal, it should return 0. So let me show you how you can see if your code is correct. You can just click the run button up here, and it's going to run some tests that test your code. So right now all of the tests fail, but since we know this is just a hard-coded solution, but I want to show you what it will look like when the tests pass. So let's just pretend all DNA strands are always going to be equal. In that case, they would always be 0. So we've just added that one. We've just changed that one line of code, and we've already gotten 2 tests to pass. Of course, that's not going to be an adequate solution because you're going to need to do some data validation here in the constructor according to the instructions. So I will change that back. But you only want to you want to try to get as many tests to pass as possible. And again, you can run those tests by just running the file, clicking here, or you can right click anywhere in the file and click run as Java application. Same thing. So now they all fail again. And that's really it. That's the format, at least for these first few coding assignments. We'll see if I can keep up with that throughout the semester or not. The next problem I would recommend working on is email checker. Same thing. You're going to want to read the instructions, complete all the sections marked to do in this class. So you have 2 main methods here. You're going to add an email address if it's valid, and it cannot be empty. If the email address is not valid, you're going to just print a message to the console which says that's just a system.out.println line which says email cannot be empty. This has to be exact, so you may just want to copy and paste this into your print statement. And I'll give you a big hint that will help you out for this problem. None of your tests are going to pass until you implement this method, and this is actually probably the easiest method to implement too, depending on the collection you use to store the email addresses. And I tell you which collection type to use here. It's an array list. So for this method, you just need to return the size of your array list as an integer, and then you can start getting some of your tests to pass. As with the Hamming file, don't change anything in the main method. The main method for these two classes is just a stub method, we might call it, to run tests. So if you really need to do some troubleshooting to figure out why your tests aren't passing, you can look at the tests. They're here in the main file, but I'm not expecting you to understand this code yet. You probably should be able to understand this code. The code in Hamming is a little more convoluted, but I'm just using the ternary operator here to print out pass or fail based on the Boolean condition here. So if you return the correct collection size, you pass the test, otherwise you would fail. So that's why you have to implement that method before any of the tests will pass. But don't change anything in the main methods. And then lastly, as I say in the assignment instructions, things get a little more complicated in our next, in the final task for this assignment. We're creating a mini RPG game that's a role-playing game between two types of characters, wizards and warriors. And apparently wizards and warriors do not like each other. They fight and they deal damage to each other. And we have some instructions here. These are the requirements. So each character type has at least two methods, a toString and damage points. This is an inheritance class hierarchy, so both the warrior and the wizard are subclasses of this parent type. So you may want to review your inheritance notes. The wizard class is where most of the action will happen for here, and the instructions go into that in a bit more detail. And I gave you a big hint in the assignment instructions in Canvas as well. The last thing I would like you to do for this one is to add multi-line comments to your classes and methods in this file. And you can use the other files as a guide for that. So you see these comments. That would be a good model to use for your own documentation. Lastly, to run the tests for this assignment, the tests are actually located in this other file called Game Engine, and you can run the tests even before you've coded anything, and they should all fail. And actually this is an approach developers often take in real-life industry called test-driven development. I'm sure you've probably heard about it, or you will hear a lot more about it. But yeah, this is what unit testing is all about. You write the tests to ensure your code is valid before you even write a line of code. So in test-driven development, the process, it's a cycle. You run the test, you see fail, and then you write your code, pass, and repeat. And you do that over and over again until all of your unit tests pass. So hopefully that gives you just a taste of things to come, and let me know if something doesn't make sense, but I assume this is a pretty straightforward assignment if you've already taken ITP 120. Thanks, everyone.